Hey, it's Noelle from Country Credits. I'm here with Mary Kutter. She's a Nashville songwriter with over 100 million streams on songs that she's been a part of. So it's so great to have you here, Mary. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for inviting me to come on.
Yeah, I love it. You are a big deal down there because you've been working with different artists and different writers and just kind of getting your name out there, I feel like, so much recently. So I just kind of want to jump back to the beginning and did you always know that songwriting in particular would be something that you're a part of? How did music come to be such a big part of your life?
Ooh, that's a really cool question. Everyone, something I have found in the writing room, everyone I always ask kind of a similar question, like how'd you get into music? And it's always really interesting to hear different people's, the genesis of how they got into music because everyone's is different. I grew up in Kentucky and just a very normal childhood. I sang in church though in different school functions. And for being so close to Nashville, just like 2.5 hours away from where I'm from in Kentucky, it never crossed my mind to actually, dive into the music business. It might as well have been Australia or New Zealand or something. And obviously, I loved music, and like I said, I was singing in church and different school functions. And when I graduated, I started singing at different fairs and festivals too. People just, how things go. Like you'll sing at one thing and someone will invite you to sing at the next thing. And so that's what I was doing full time after I graduated. And there was a guy named Roth Stratton from Bardstown, Kentucky, right outside of Louisville, that owned a couple of radio stations and a TV station. And we met backstage and at a festival that I was singing at, and we kept on running into each other at different functions. And I just say, "Hey, Roth, how are you?" He'd say, "Hey, Mary."
Yeah.
And fast forward, he reached out to me and asked me to come to his office, and he said he wanted to talk to me about something. And I was thinking it must be like a show opening slot or something because they would book concerts and stuff. Well, I went into his office, I sat down, and Roth told me that he wanted to start a music variety show, and it was going to be a weekly show, and he asked if I would host it. And I didn't have any experience at all with that, but I do like to talk if you haven't noticed.
Mhm.
And anyway, I started doing that show. It was a weekly show where we'd have different artists on radio tour, different hit songwriters that would come on the show. I would interview them, they'd perform, and simultaneously while doing that, I was still, singing around the area as well. And there was a feller named Kim Williams who was a really big songwriter back in like the 90s, early 2K. I mean, hit after hit with like just about everyone. I don't even know how many number ones he had. Well, he was on the show. And after we got done filming, he asked me if I did music. And I was like, yeah, that's actually what I do, outside of the radio TV show. And he was like, well, do you write songs? And at that point, I had written a couple, in my bedroom, never done co-writing or anything. But he said, well, play me something. And when Kim tells you to do something, you do it. And so I played him some music, and looking back, I don't even know what I played him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure it
Sure.
was not great. We'll say it that way. But for whatever reason, he said, hold on. And he pulled out, he had his computer with him, and he pulled out his address book on there. And it was different people's phone numbers. And he gave me 9 different songwriters who were legends in their own right with
Right.
their phone numbers. And you call them and say that Kim
Oh,
Williams told you that you need to call them and they need to either write with you, they need to be on your show, or at least get coffee with you. And looking back now, I'm like, wow,
what a deal.
what a huge, and that changed truly the trajectory of my life and meeting Kim. And I guess you could rewind it to meeting Roth at the show because I never would have met Kim, otherwise. And honestly, whatever festival or fair that I was singing at whenever I met Roth, I mean, you just never know how things happen. And I just feel really, really, really grateful. And there's been lots of different folks along the way that, it's similar, different stories in the Kim Williams story, but stories where, I had no business doing something, but folks would, open the door and invite me in. And I I started making trips back and forth to Nashville writing. And just like with the singing, you know, I would do one write, and then folks were like, oh, you need to write with my friend Becky. Then I write with Becky. Then Becky's like, oh man, you need to write with my friend Billy Bob, you know? And before I knew it, I
Yeah.
was here all the time. And that's kind of how it happened.
Wow, that's really cool.
Thanks, Queen.
What was the length of that, like between that starting and was it years?
Going back and forth.
No, like from like you starting in Kentucky, like you.
Well, I did the radio show, I want to say 3 years.
Okay.
I want to say maybe it was 2 years. I should know that. I should know the answer to that. That's really bad. Okay, I think it's either 2 or 3 years. And I've been in Nashville for 5 years. So time flies, let me tell you. And it's kind of crazy. Last night I played at the Bluebird and here in Nashville, and this guy pulled me aside afterwards. He was like, how long have you been in town? And I was like, 5 years. And it just kind of hit me. I don't know. That's so crazy how time goes by so quickly. And not to get too deep, but truly, like, the time flies, but it's every single day. You know, we get 365 days a year, right? So times that by 5, you know, that I've been in Nashville, and like every single day we make these decisions that can really change the course of our life. You know, you never know, you know, whenever you're writing a song or you walk into a meeting or whatever, what could happen, you know what I'm saying? And that is the exciting part about writing music.
Yeah, and especially being in Nashville now. I mean, that's like the one place I feel like you never know who you're gonna bump into where. I mean, that could happen anywhere, but Nashville's kind of known for that. Like you're gonna just grab coffee, you're gonna do whatever, and you're gonna bump into someone, you're like, oh wow, I admire you.
That's so true. It
But
is very interesting. It's such a small town. I'm from a super small town. Like, I mean, we just got a Taco Bell in Springfield, Kentucky, where I'm from. Very small. But it's really interesting. Obviously, I mean, I had culture shock whenever I moved to Nashville. I was like, whoa, this is huge. There's skyscrapers.
yeah,
Well, I guess it's all relative, you know, obviously if you're from LA or New York or something,
right.
or Tokyo, but it still is a small town in the sense of, like, I guess the music community specifically, because Midtown, I mean, I live in Midtown. I'm literally looking out the window right now at Music Row. And I mean, literally you can just walk it, you know what I'm saying? It's a super small area. So I guess that's why it has the whole small town feeling.
The little big town.
The little big town. Yes.
I love that. So yeah, and obviously congratulations on your first publishing deal. So do you want to talk about how that came to be? I don't know how much you can say, but like who found who, but it was with Reservoir. So that's really exciting.
Well, it's been so cool. And I signed the deal. We started it at the top of this year. So you know, it is really crazy. Like, you know, you just say you never know what's going to happen in Nashville, right? Who's going to bump into who or whatever. Well, I had always heard these types of stories where, like, someone would hear a song with your name on it, and then they'd be like, oh, wow, we have to meet this person. But I kind of felt like it was kind of like folklore a little bit. You know what I'm saying? People just being like, does that really happen? Well, that is what happened in my case. Greg Gallo, the vice president over at Reservoir, within like 2 hours, 2 different songs that I was a writer on had been sent his way. Different artist, totally different songs. But both times he was like, whoa, I love this song. Who's the writers on it? And both times he saw my name. And after that, he got on, my phone's right there filming us, but he got on his phone and, you know, saw what I was doing on social media, blah, blah, blah. And I had literally just gotten back from a run. I had hopped in the shower and my phone dinged. And I got out of the shower and I had an email from Greg. And it was the nicest email like I have ever gotten from a publisher. And I was like, is this a real email or is this spam? And I checked the email, like, it does look like a real email address. And so I went in and met with them and met with him and Beth, the creative over at Reservoir. And we met for, I mean, it was around 2 hours. And I knew literally, like, in that meeting, I was like, this is the company for me. I knew it. And I left that day. And then I guess it was like a week or so later, I went back in again and met with Greg and then the head of the Nashville office, John. And it was the same feeling. And literally maybe 2 weeks after that, I got my deal offer.
Wow.
And so, yeah, and so it's kind of crazy. But I will say though, Queen, this girl has had lots of meetings that did not go like that. You know what I'm saying? And I think that there is something, really important about keeping that in our noggins that, I mean, obviously there's lots of great companies in town, lots of great publishers, lots of great people, obviously. But there is something about the puzzle pieces fitting together. And I think that, there's the good yes and there's the best yes. And I think I definitely got that. And I feel really grateful for it.
So exciting. I don't know if the hits were any of your Nate or your Bailey cut, but those were so good. So, I mean, Wreckage is literally like one of my favorite songs. I think it just like pulls like different emotions out of me that I'm never expecting to feel. And then the song comes on and I'm like, oh my gosh. But I love that song. So I don't know, can you talk about like how it was writing that? Was Nate there with you? Did he hop on a Zoom? Like, how did that go?
Man, so absolutely. I'm so glad you like Wreckage, by the way. That makes me really happy. That makes me really happy. And it goes to show, like we said earlier, you never know what's gonna happen in the writing room and what you're writing, what it's gonna do. That was my last songwriting session right before Christmas of 2020. And so literally everyone in town, like they were gone. Like literally, it was like literally right before Christmas, and everyone went home to see their families. And Chris Sly, he was one of the writers on it. He lives here in town, and like his whole family does. And so he wasn't leaving town. Nate was going to be flying out, I want to say like the next day. And then Paul Rock, the other writer, he was going to be flying home as well the next day. And I was like, well, let's get together. Who knows? Maybe it could be the last song of the year and it'd be something special. And you just never know. I'm so glad that like we didn't think, let's, call it a year, And we got together, we wrote the song. Nate turned in the song. His team said, this song's a hit, everything but the title. And it was not called Wreckage initially. And anyway, so of course everyone's literally going home, right? Like Paul left, like he literally had left town. And like I said, Nate was gonna be flying out, Chris was staying in town, but then I was about to head out too. And so we are like, well, maybe we can get together the next day right before Nate leaves and maybe we can edit it. I don't know. So we got back together again. And man, girl, I don't even know how many versions, like the original version, I do remember this was, you see all the, I don't even know if it said Wreckage though. I don't think it said Wreckage. You see it was the same meaning as Wreckage, but you call it Beautiful was how we landed the song at the very end. Instead of, but it wrecks me that you stay.
That's
And
like,
and that's so crazy though. I mean, I guess like, editing, I'm glad that, the team pushed us and we sent over probably a half dozen-ish versions. And finally, Chief was like, that's the one. And we were like, hallelujah, let's go get tacos. And anyway, I'm so glad that we did it. And it's just a really special song. And it's been really cool seeing how it's relatable to so many people. But I guess we all want to have a love like that, and someone that sees your flaws and loves you anyway.
I agree 100%. So as far as the other Nate cut with Sleeve, I know that wasn't as popular, but I feel like that's just such a nice song too. And it's just a different vibe.
Well, thanks, girl. I appreciate it. I mean, we wrote that song, gosh, like, it's kind of crazy. I was looking at streams the other day and Wreckage is almost passing up Sleeve now. I mean, Sleeve's at, I think, 30 million on Spotify. But Wreckage, I mean, it's literally about ready to leapfrog it. But we wrote Sleeve back during the pandemic, and it was when the whole world was shut down. It was literally the top of the pandemic. I was up in Kentucky. Nate was still in California. He hadn't moved here yet. Noah was in Virginia and Brian was in Nashville, and we hopped on the Zoom, and Nate told us the idea, and he wanted to write a song that basically, I mean, you've heard the song. I mean, it's just about a really tough time in his life. And I didn't know Nate very well at that point. We had met, written a couple times, but he told us his story, what it actually went down. And I was like, well, you know what, Nate, if we're going to go there, let's go there all the way. Like, let's just go too far. We can always hit delete. You know what I'm saying? And we almost did with a third verse or the bridgey bridge, whatever you want to call it. But we wrote it, and I mean, we finished the session that day. I hopped off the Zoom. I was like, that was cool. And I didn't realize, you know, what it might do until that night. Nate had gotten on his phone and done a TikTok live or an Instagram live. I don't remember which one, but I was watching it. And he was like, guys, I wrote this today. What do you think? And he starts playing it. And at this point, Nate had not popped off yet. I mean, he was killing it in California playing shows, but like he didn't have like his viral moment yet. At least not on TikTok. And he started playing the song, and I was watching, like, this is a cool song, you know, this was fun, you know. And then he gets to the third verse, the part that we almost deleted, which is crazy. And literally, I'm watching the comment section just explode while he's singing the third verse. And I was like, okay, wow, okay, we might have something. And it was literally like maybe a month and a half later, Nate moved to Nashville. And like, talk about serendipitous time. He moved to town. Literally the next week, he went viral on TikTok. And I remember it was just really cool to see things just blossom. I remember we got tacos after he moved to town, and he told me about how he had first met with Chief. And that was just the beginning of so many huge things for him. And I mean, he's so deserving. And they knew that song was a special one. We didn't know, you know, I mean, I didn't know anything about anything really, business-wise, to be totally frank. But we knew he was going to end up recording it. He did, and he released it right before he got his record deal. And so it was just a really special thing. And I mean, he still plays it out on tour, which is really cool. Like, 'cause he has a lot of great songs. Okay. But it's always going to be a special one. It opened up a lot of doors for everyone involved, for sure.
How did you initially meet Nate? Was it through a mutual friend, or if he wasn't in
that? Kind of a random thing. So I had gotten coffee with this guy named Churro. And Churro, he at the time was the tour manager for Tyler Rich. And I want to say he's with Matt Stell now, but he might be with someone else. You know, they hop around and stuff with the tours. Anyway, so we got coffee. I mean, there was, you know, we just got coffee and met each other. Okay, fast forward, that was like January 2019. Okay. Fast forward to August 2019, I get a DM, and it's from Nate. He's like, hey, I'm going to be in town next week. My friend Churro told me that I need to connect with you. Do you want to write? And I was like, what? And I was like, Churro, because I literally had not seen Churro since like that January. Okay. Well, so I look at my calendar, and I literally, no joke, had 3 writes every single day except one day. One day I had 2 writes. And so I messaged Nate back, and I was like, well, I can write. I think it was like a Monday or Tuesday. I was like, I can do that, but it has to be a night write because I'm already booked. And he was like, absolutely, I'm in. And so we got together. We wrote. Great session. I mean, killer. He flew back home to California. Then he came back again, I want to say like 2 months later, and we got more sessions. And I mean, Nate's just incredibly talented and a great human too. And we've gotten a lot of really special songs together.
Yeah. Wow. That's really cool.
Well, it goes to show back to our idea. You never know what's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? I never knew that like getting coffee randomly with someone would lead to someone, which would lead to something. You know what I mean?
I feel like, well, I can get your take on this, but I was just talking to someone about when you're a writer in town, like the importance of, I guess, relationships versus talent, it's almost like equal, because
for
if
sure,
you have a true relationship with someone, like you're going to be able to tell their story, whether it's through like songs or conversation. And if you just have all the talent, but you don't have the relationships, it's like, you're not going to get anywhere. So it's just like, what do you think is almost more important, or do you think they're equally as important?
I actually think that people skills are the most important thing. And
Mm.
work ethic. I think both of those two things. I think talent, like honestly, I mean, there are few people that actually blow me away talent wise. Nate actually does. I'm not just saying that. Like he actually does. Very few other people do, but who cares? It doesn't matter, right? As long as you believe what they're singing, you know, and they're doing something special. But I really feel like, I mean, when you're talking about being a writer and stuff, gosh, yeah, you could be the most brilliant genius of all time, but if someone doesn't want you in the room with them, does it really help? You know what I'm saying? And I think that goes with artistry too. I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, we get in a room and we have to be super vulnerable and like vulnerable, even if you're not writing a sad song, like
Right.
even just doing, like, think about Old Town Road. Whoever thought of that idea, they
Mm.
had to be vulnerable, being like, "Hey, I had this song idea. I'm gonna take my horse." I mean, it's weird. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And to do something cool, I think you got to get a little bit weird sometimes. And
You gotta get like emotionally naked. Like you gotta.
1000%, that's a really good way to put it. That's a really good way to put it. And you have to be confident enough in your emotional nakedness to get naked with a bunch of random people. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of pieces to it. That's a really good metaphor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that the people skills and the work ethic are, but obviously you could be, you know, the best politician of all time. If you're not talented at all, things ain't gonna work out. You know, and people will just want to hang out with you. And there are, I have seen situations of that from afar, you know, with people that, you know, maybe are great hangs, but people just want to go to the bar with them. You know what I mean? Which is unfortunate because obviously I'm sure that they would bring a lot to the writing room too. So, I mean, you know, there's obviously you got to have multiple things, but yeah.
Yeah, and then another one obviously that you're very well known for, and I think you were playing it at the Bluebird, is Never Leave with for Bailey, which was his first track on the EP. And that EP, I feel like people, you know, artists release EPs, and sometimes it's just like, oh, I have an EP, and it's very exciting for like your group of followers, but doesn't make like a big wave in the industry. I feel like that EP like launched his career. It was just like such a big deal. So to have Never Leave on it, which also did really well, and still is, it's just so exciting. So how did that come to be?
You know, you're not wrong, by the way, about the EP thing. That's a really good way to put it. Because you're right. A lot of times it's just like, here's an EP, blah, you know what I mean, with a bunch of album cuts and like one good song, right? But then like his EP, which I mean, yeah, I was lucky enough to have a song on there. The entire EP was just awesome, and it broke a ton of records. I can't tell you what they all were. I'm sure you know what they are, but really interesting. But so Bailey had actually covered Sleeve on social media, and that I wrote with Nate.
Mhm.
And Bailey and I started talking, and we were like, well, we should write, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, well, this is rewind back to 2021. Okay. So we're rewinding. Okay. Um, and he's like, well, I'm down to write, but I live up in Illinois. And it'll have to be on the weekends because I work. And I'm like, okay, that's totally cool. We'll write on the weekends. And he was like, by the way, can my friend Gavin join us? I was like, sure. Well, zoom out. Bailey was and Gavin, they both worked on the gas pipeline up in Illinois. And so what we started doing, and Gavin and him went to high school together, and Gavin's on a bunch of Bailey songs. They write together a lot. Great guy. Anyway, so they would work all week during the week up in Illinois, drive down after they got off work on Friday night. We would write on the weekend. Then they would drive back home and go back to work. Okay. Well, I mean, I remember whenever we had locked in to get dates down to write, I reached out to multiple co-writing friends because I was like, hey, this guy, like, he doesn't have the numbers yet, but he's kind of popping off. And I know he lives up in Illinois, but I just think there's something about him, blah, blah, blah. And to be totally frank, a lot of people were like, I don't know, I don't want to write on the weekends. And like literally multiple people that I asked. And Chris Sly, though, did not say no. He said, yes, I'm in.
Yeah.
And Chris and I have written a lot of great songs together, but Bailey, Gavin, Chris and I started writing on the weekends, and we wrote Never Leave. And it was right after we wrote that song. The song wasn't out yet, but he popped off and got his record deal, did the whole shabam. And then he posted Never Leave on TikTok, and it went really viral. And they dropped it, and I was like, whoa, what's going on right now? And it went all the way to #1 on Sirius XM, The Highway, which was super cool. That was my first #1 on there.
Okay.
But it's just really crazy. Like, I think something I guess I learned, and I feel like I still have lots to learn, but something I learned from that experience was, like, obviously you never know with the song, once again, but gosh, like, I'm really glad I was like, sorry, I only write at 11 o'clock 3 days a week. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Was it one of the writes that happened quickly too, or did it take a while?
never leave.
Mhm.
I should know the answer to that. I know that, well, see, this is the thing though. With Gavin, Bailey, and Chris and I, we typically, like, before Bailey moved down here, we would do the nights and weekends, like, of the weekends. We would go out to eat and stuff before. So, like, it would always be like a longer session, but we always went out to eat first. So, like, but the actual writing part never leave. I do remember the chorus just fell out. I remember Chris was playing the keyboard and it was dark outside. And this was during the summer too. So it was late. Okay. Just like put that in your noggin.
Writes happen.
And I remember Chris was playing the keyboard and Bailey just like popped out, like freestyling, like truly the top of the chorus. And I won't give up on you. And I was like, whoa, that's nice. Okay. And then we just started rolling with it. And I feel like the song just like came from an honest place of, where Bailey was at in his life and with a relationship. And it just, it kind of fell out.
That is so cool. So for people who don't know, like, I think a lot of people know about Music Row and like all the publishing houses, and I'm sure writes happen all over the place. But like in a situation like that, were you just writing? I know it's common to just write in homes and studios, and where was like a write like that? And where are most of your writes? Where do they normally happen?
It's so interesting. I was thinking about this the other day. Pre-COVID, then COVID, now post-COVID, it has changed the location of the thing. Obviously, during COVID, for the most part, it was Zoom. Pre-COVID, a lot of stuff was on Music Row, and it still is. So that's still with post-COVID. It was used to be like, we're right in so-and-so's house. Okay. Well, now during COVID, a lot of people beefed up their home studios. So like now a lot of writes are at producers' homes. But I still write a lot on Music Row. Like, I mean, I don't know what the percentage is. I mean, every week's different. I'd say it's like 50-50, and I still write a lot on Zoom. Earlier this week, everything's been on Zoom this week, actually.
Wow.
The artist, there's an artist that just signed with Big Loud that we're finishing up her project. She's cutting, I want to say 20 songs, and she wanted to get just a couple more sessions in before she hits the studio, but she's up in New York. And I was like, let's do the Zoom. So anyway, you just never know. What's really cool, I think, and it keeps my brain moving. I love the different locations, the Zooms. Like, you never know what you're walking into, and every space is different, which is cool.
Yes, 100%. I feel like, yeah, for a creative industry, if it was so routine, it would just not work the same. But yeah, I mean, so what would be like your #1 piece of advice for someone that, whether they just moved to Nashville or not, because obviously you can write from anywhere, that's just like trying to break in the scene and just trying to get some of their songs heard?
One thing that I've seen is that things can change so fast, like so quickly. Now it's like a lot of no change than a huge change. And whenever, I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but whenever I moved to town, I immediately started hosting writers' nights on Demond Brand here in Midtown, which is right off of Music Row. And that's how I met a lot of people early on. And, pre-COVID, I think, and probably if you're moving to town now, it's still the same way. You need to get your booty out and meet people. That doesn't mean just go party it up, at the bars, but it's more so like, go meet the people. If you hear someone you think is talented, introduce yourself, Well, but with hosting those different writers' nights, I saw a lot of talent. And just to give you a mind frame, one of the shows that I hosted was at Tin Roof on the Mom Brand, and I hosted that specific show for 10 months. And in that time, we had just under 500 different people playing, not repeats, different. So a lot of people. And I could count on one hand people that, shouldn't have been up there, which that's a pretty good ratio. But on the other hand, I could count on one hand people that really stood out. And it has been kind of interesting. A lot of those people ended up doing some things. Some of them totally changed directions. Like Gail was one of them. At the time, she wasn't even going by Gail. And then Cooper Allen was one of them. Lauren Weintraub, like, really stuck out. And it wasn't even necessarily their voices, although they have incredible voices, or that they're beautiful, although they are gorgeous, or even their songs. There's just that little special thing. But it is really interesting. We talked about earlier the puzzle pieces clicking together. And I think, for Cooper, for example, we've been friends literally since the week before he moved to town. He played OMG, and then we started writing immediately after he moved. I saw, whenever he moved to town, he was phenomenal. Like, his live show was great, and I remember right before COVID happened, I went to see him play across the street at Doghouse Saloon, and it was a 10 p.m. slot, full band. And I kid you not, there were 3 people in the audience. I was one of them. The bartender was one of them too. And I remember, though, leaving the show thinking that was phenomenal. He's going to be a superstar. And that was because his live show, there were 3 people there, but he was still so, like, it might as well have been Nissan, like the way he performed. And right after that was when COVID hit. Everything shut down. And I remember Cooper and I were writing on the Zoom. And I was like, so what's your COVID hobby? And he was like, well, I just downloaded TikTok. I've been posting songs. I was like, oh, that's cool. And of course, fast forward, however many millions he has on there, I don't even know. I know it's over 7 million, but I don't know a lot. Well, I say all that, a lot of nothing happened until a ton happened, and the pieces clicked together. It's just like Nate, whenever he found his songs that opened up the doors. Same thing with Bailey, same thing with Priscilla. It's like whenever they, found that piece, it, like, boom, but I think, though, you don't know what that thing's gonna be. You know what I'm saying? Like with Cooper, it was a mashup on TikTok. You know what I mean? With Nate, I mean, one could argue it was a couple of the songs that he released, there's so many different things. And I think then if you're just diving into the industry, or even if you've been swimming for a while, I think it's trying to figure out, what that thing's going to be, and just grind until you get that thing. Because once you get it, it's just like, it's kind of like, I've started running, and I mean, I don't think I'm a very legit runner. I run 5 miles a day, but, like,
That's a lot.
I'm still very new in it, though. You know what I'm saying? And the reason I bring it up is something I've noticed, and I was trying to read about it the other night, and they call it like a runner's high. But basically, like, okay, and it was so LOL whenever I was reading about it. They were like, at mile 4, I was like, this happens to me in mile 1, when, like, you feel like I can't go on anymore. And, like, you're just going, you keep on pushing. And then it's like that, and, like, not to get too detailed, but, like, for me, it's like I start to really sweat big time. Like the sweat's pouring down, not wearing makeup at this point, or it's gone. And it's like everything clicks right then. Then you feel incredible. It's really bizarre. And that's the runner's high. And you just feel incredible. Well, you had to push through that tough little spot to get to that. And I think, a lot of us can think that if something doesn't come within 1 week of moving to town, or 1 year, then, oh, well, it must not be cut out for it. But maybe you're still in that, the runner's situation where you just haven't broke the sweat yet. You know what I'm saying? But then once you do, thank goodness you kept on running. You know what I'm saying?
I think you were the hardest working person that I know in Nashville. Just,
there's a lot of hard workers, but I appreciate that.
Is, but you must write, what do you write? Like 25 writes a week, and then, like, you're running like 5 miles a day, but then you're playing at night, and then you're networking like 24/7. I admire it. I really do.
Well, I really love it. And I mean, I kind of just run on a high all the time from what I get to do. And it hits me, like, literally, like, this sounds so hippie, but I don't care. It is what it is.
I'm a hippie.
Every single session I walk into, every time I get on stage, every time like, I get to meet with someone, it's just like, it's so cool. Like, this is so cool, and there's lots of other ways that, my life could have went down different roads and that would have been great too, obviously. But gosh, like, and I really want to cherish every single one of those things, because you never know when the next sleeve is being written. You never know when you're meeting with the next like Morgan Wallen. You actually really don't know. And the thing is, that would be one more thing I would say too. I don't know if this is really that helpful of advice at all, but it's more so just a mentality thing. I really have seen now, those different people I was just mentioning. There's more. Like, I've been in town long enough where, I've, seen people that I actually know, but then a bunch of people from afar where, people are like, oh, they're never going to be anything. Now they're like literally winning ACMs, like literally, and so it goes to show like, gosh, like you should be kind to everyone. My parents, they taught me and my brother, you treat the CEO and the janitor the same way, period. And they really ingrained that, like big time. So like, it's kind of, to me, like kind of like common sense, just do it. But this is the thing too, like you literally never know. And wouldn't that be unfortunate, if you had written off someone? Now that's not to say like, obviously there's 24 hours in a day. That doesn't mean you have to work with everyone, or that you can, even if you want to, like obviously, but like, I think everyone deserves respect and kindness. That's my little soapbox moment. But I think that if you treat people right, or you try to, because we don't get everything right all the time, and you work hard, I think you're going to find success. I really do. Some of the biggest writers in town, they actually can't sing a lick, but they have hits. But they worked hard and they were kind to others, and they just kept on pushing. And I don't know. It's a pretty exciting ride.
I'm really happy that you said that, because that's something that, same thing, my parents just kind of instilled that from day one. Like, you're going to treat everyone the same with certain, the same respect. I think love always wins. I just think that you have to have that mentality. I agree 100%.
Well, and obviously, especially in like the entertainment industry, it can be very easy to you're trying to make moves, you're trying to make things happen. And like, it's kind of like literally, we were talking about some of those people that would have write with Bailey back in the day. Well, like, after he popped off, they're like, yo, can we write? Like, obviously I'm not vindictive at all, but okay. But like literally at that point, Bailey was past that. You know what I'm saying? And like, you hear that story repeatedly around town about other artists as well, where like people wrote them off, and as soon as they start having success, they want to hop on, which makes sense because you're trying to get success, right? But I don't know. I think like, I don't know. I think it just shines through, and it probably does affect things business-wise more than we realize.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So a couple more things before we wrap it up. But obviously, you as an artist too. You have over 130,000 followers on TikTok, right?
Yeah.
Your energy, you have your own music. It's so exciting. How does that compare to like the writing side of everything? And I'm just so excited for you, and I can't wait to hear more. But I don't know. Like, what's your favorite song you've written of your own? What's your favorite song you've written for someone else?
Oh gosh, that's really tough. Oh, that's so tough. Okay. Well, you know what? Like, honestly, all the songs are babies, so I love them all. But I will say that I still think it's super cool how people have resonated with Go South so much. And like Mississippi Votes Blue, the most random song ever. Like literally, I was like, you know what? I'm going to write a breakup jam where we use all 50 states in the entire song. And we did it. And it's under 3 minutes. And it was really fun. And gosh, like it really is two different things, but they obviously coincide and coexist in the same world too. Being an artist and being a songwriter. And I look at different folks that have done kind of the vision that I have, like Hardy. I think he's a great example. He truly like is a hit writer and a huge artist, and he's still exploding in both lanes. And there's been other people too, like Ryan Tedder, BB Rexa, more in the pop space, I guess. But like, it's just a really neat thing. And you take off one hat and you put on the other, and you definitely, you know, get to create in both avenues. But it's kind of cool. Like some songs that I would write for another artist, I probably would never sing them myself, but I really enjoy help telling their story. But then with my artistry, it's almost like you get to be Sasha Fierce a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, and with the artistry stuff so far, like it's been kind of kick booty, like better watch out, you know, we don't mess around. And, you know, that's been kind
Love
of
that.
fun to do too. Because, you know, I like to think I'm a decently nice person in real life, you know, but it's, we all have those Sasha Fierce moments where we got to have a little bit of savagery. And so it's been really cool. But to answer your question with, you know, songs I've written for someone else or with someone else, I really don't know. That's really bad. I should have an answer to that. I will say Wreckage is such a special song to me. I really, really love that song. But there's, you know, there's a lot of songs that aren't out yet too that I'm like, I feel like they'll be contenders, you know? So we'll just have to see. Ask me that in 5 years. We'll see what we say.
The three questions that I'm wrapping up every interview with is just somewhat related to music, somewhat not. So first question is best place to hang out in Nashville, in your opinion, or favorite place. Second is favorite all-time artist, doesn't have to be country. And then third is favorite up-and-coming artist. Doesn't have to
Love
be
it. Love it. Okay. So, man, I'll tell you, there's a lot of good spots in Nashville to hang out. I will say Americano Lounge is a really cool vibe. So is the Funny Library at the Virgin Hotel. That place is so dope. I love drinking coffee there. I'm a coffee person to the max. Now I will say there's also this restaurant. It's a little bit on the bougie side, but if you sit at the bar, they got a bar menu that's a little bit like more normal prices, and it's called Halls. And it's a steakhouse that's from Charleston. And that was the first time I ever went there. And I told everyone here about how great Halls was. And then Halls came here, and it's amazing. It's so good. The food's phenomenal. Now, what was the next question? We'll get off of food.
favorite all-time artist.
Ooh, my favorite all-time artist. It's Elvis. 1000%. I love Elvis. He had it all. Like literally it all. And that's my favorite song too, Can't Help Falling in Love with You. I think that's just, oh, I love it.
Oh, good. Iconic.
Yes.
And then favorite up-and-coming artist.
Ooh, I mean, gosh.
I know.
I know it's really tough. It's really tough. I'll say, outside the country space, I really think Swaco is phenomenal. I've really been into his stuff, and it's like, it's really interesting because he's doing like this punk thing that like is so fresh but also retro at the same time. And I'll tell you, we were talking about Nashville bumping into people. He does not live in Nashville, but I was finishing a writing session. I was in East Nashville getting some coffee in between my next session. I walk out and there's Swaco. And I'm like, wait, what? Of course, I never met Swaco before. I just like follow him, you know, on social media, and I'm a huge fan of him. And so I go up to him like, hi, are you Swaco? And he was like, yes, I am. And he was on tour, and they had just stopped to eat food, but it was kind of cool.
That is so amazing. Wow. Okay, awesome. Great.
Kind of a random story, but
I really love that. I feel like we could talk forever, but
same.
that was really, really informative. And I just think like any last words for like anyone just grinding. I feel like side note, like I feel like something that a songwriter was telling me this once, and it stuck with me. Like if you're writing, don't focus so much, and you're not signed, like don't focus so much on getting a publishing deal. Just focus on like writing every day, every chance you can get.
Yes.
Things will probably fall into place. Do you agree with that?
1000%. It's kind of like if you're trying to get abs, just like looking at pictures of the girls with them, like, man, I want abs so badly. Well, it's like, yo, honey bun, get to the gym, try to eat a little bit healthier. That will get you closer than wanting it. You know, because this is the thing. If you're writing hit songs, you're going to get a publishing deal offer, period. Like, period. Unless you're just a horrible human and people are like, we don't trust them, you know? And I think that it's one of those situations that, you know, sometimes, you know, we can be trying to cook spaghetti and we're watching the water waiting for it to boil, when it's like, well, while it's gearing up to do that, chop up some onions and garlic and tomato sauce, get that moving. You know what I'm saying? Um,
You have the best comparisons.
Thank you, Queen. I really do love the metaphor lifestyle.
So good.
But oh, can I tell you one thing? You may not even use this in the interview, but this is something I heard earlier this week, and it's really been something that's been in my brain so much. They were talking about, and I think this goes into discipline, I guess. Okay, picture a microwave, but also picture a crock pot. Obviously, you can throw something in the microwave, it's gonna be done quicker. It's gonna be good. Obviously, we all use a microwave. Microwaves are great. Thank you, Lord, for making them. Well, versus the crock pot, it's honestly very easy to cook with a crock pot. You just throw everything in, throw the spices in, plug it in, turn it on, but it takes longer. And they're talking about how discipline is like the crock pot. It's actually not necessarily like just running 5 miles a day from the get-go, but it's like, okay, take a walk and then like run half a mile, then run, you know, and it's like the small steps that takes more time, but it's more sustainable. And also whenever you eat the food, it's like Picasso, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that is good. That's good. I think I'm going to include that. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and all your advice and all your hard work is so prominent in everything that you do. So yeah, best of luck with everything.
Thank you, girl.